Cisco Duo webinar. My name is Chris Eubanks, and I'm the Program Partner Alliance Manager here at DSI. DSI is an IT solutions company based out of Ashburn, Virginia, with offices across the United States. We were founded in 1991 by our current owners and have both SLED and Fed sales teams. Today, we're going to be talking about Cisco Duo, a multi-factor authentication product. And I'm not going to get into too much detail here because Marvin Rhoads will be taking the wheel. Marvin has been with us for over 4 years as a senior network security engineer. And as you can tell from his title, security is his forte. Please type any questions that you have for Marvin in the chat box located on the right side of your screen, and we'll answer those post-presentation. This session is being recorded, and a link to this will be, as well as the slides, will be provided post-presentation. Take it away, Marvin.
Thank you, Chris. Everybody, can you all hear me fine back there at the DSI office?
Yes, we are recording.
Thank you, Michelle. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning, taking time out of your schedules. As Chris mentioned, I'm Marvin Rhoads. I've been with DSI for over 4.5 years, going on 5 years now. And I'll be talking to you today about Duo. In October 2018, Cisco completed the acquisition of Duo Security. And what Duo Security brings to Cisco's solution set is Adaptive MFA, or multi-factor authentication. We'll talk a little bit about exactly what that is, but overall, we can put the vision into just one simple sentence. We're to secure access for all users connecting to any application from any device. Pretty simple. With Duo Security, we make security easy and effective. This secure access from any application for all users from any device, it includes employees, partners, vendors, contractors, no matter what application they access, whether it's on-prem, on your own data center, or in the cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud. Duo Security can secure anything that has a login screen, and applications can then be accessed in a more secure manner from any device, whether it's a corporate device, a managed device, employee personal device, external vendor personal device. We can secure that access. So think about the new IT reality, circa 2019, where we are, where it's becoming more and more difficult to establish user and device trust. Think about your environment. Has your environment changed at all since you've been there from a security risk, a compliance perspective? We know that just about every customer we see has an IT perimeter that's changing as the organization deploys various things, whether they're cloud-based applications, on-prem apps, you've got remote workforce, partners, vendors accessing your applications, very often from devices you have no visibility into or control over. If you're on a security team, you very likely use this threat-centric security model to keep the bad guys out. Well, the reality is the bad guys will get in eventually, somehow or another, and very often the way they do so is to log in with stolen password. So we need this complementary trust-centric security model, trust-centric as contrasted with risk-centric or threat-centric. A couple things to think about in your environment. How do you secure your remote access, whether it's a Cisco VPN or other flavor of VPN? How do you secure access to cloud applications like Office 365 or other software as a service, platform as a service applications? How do you manage the risk of phishing attacks, compromised user credentials? And how do you secure vendors, contractors, part-time employees when they access applications? Maybe you have answers for all those, maybe not. Very seldom do we see somebody have a unified answer for all of those. Duo Security can help you with that problem. Think again about that modern perimeter. It's no longer the traditional perimeter in the center there where you have corporate networks, on-site users, on-site endpoints, the servers on-site, the applications are on-site. Traditionally, we protected that with a firewall, so we had that trusted corporate network. Everything could sit inside the trust perimeter. This modern perimeter has to account for all those things around there, the mobile devices, cloud applications, remote employees, et cetera, access from not just employees in trusted places, but from vendors, from contractors in various locations, sometimes worldwide. imagine just about all of you have some aspect of that you have to secure in your environment today. How do you do it? And what has been your experience extending traditional security models to protect those elements? Very often, that's a very tortured, if it's at all successful, experience trying to use the traditional security models that we use inside our traditional perimeter to secure this new modern perimeter. Duo's platform, as I mentioned, has unified access security. We tie together identity, whether that identity is as an employee, as a privileged user, as an external contractor or partner, the devices they're using, whether they're corporate managed devices under your device management regime, or whether they're personal unmanaged devices. And then finally, I mentioned earlier, cloud, on-prem, in your data center, all the applications and infrastructure are part of what we can secure with Duo. We provide visibility into who's accessing what, prevention, preventing people from accessing things that they're not authorized to get to, detect attempts to log in that are not authorized, and remediate what to do to kick somebody out if they're found to be unauthorized or credentials are revoked or there's a security breach. We sometimes break it down into 3 customer jobs that need to be done. First off, verify that user identity. Verify that the user is somebody you trust. Authenticate them. Second, check your device trust. What's the security posture of the device? Is it a managed device that's been locked down? Is it a unmanaged device? Is it a device you don't know anything about? Verify that and perhaps make a different decision about what access you grant based on how you've been able to verify that and what you found out about the device. And then finally, granular access controls. That is to perhaps put different security policies in place for different applications. You may need something to be tied down tighter if what it's protecting is more valuable. We do all that with adaptive multi-factor authentication. We'll talk about that term quite a bit when we talk about Duo security, MFA or multi-factor authentication. What MFA is combining multiple of those types of categories, something you know, perhaps a password, something you have, perhaps your personal phone, your mobile phone, a landline even, something you are like biometrics. Can we use the biometrics locking features of phones, whether it's a Face ID or a Touch ID, that sort of thing to help secure access to applications. Duo can address securing applications and systems through all of these methods using adaptive multi-factor authentication. Another thing that we see in a lot of our customers that we deal with is meeting compliance requirements. Different industries have different compliance requirements. I'm sure that most, if not all of you, have them in your regime, whether it's PCI you have to be compliant with, payment card industry, NIST in the federal space, National Institutes of Standards and Technology, Department of Justice, for our customers overseas or people doing business with overseas, not necessarily just located overseas. If you're doing business at all with the European Union, you're usually required to be compliant with GDPR, meeting financial institutions, audit requirements, or working in healthcare or working with healthcare data, visibility into personal devices used to access that personal healthcare information or PHI, HIPAA compliance. We can provide you the MFA to help you with compliance in all of these audit regimes, no matter which they may be. And traditional MFA, let's contrast that a little bit where you have that traditional multi-factor authentication. Very often, they're not well deployed. They can't support all applications. There are gaps in what you can cover with the traditional MFA. Those tokens that you may be familiar with from days past, the one-time passwords, not very user-friendly. Sometimes you have to copy down like a 6-digit strong password and copy that exactly into a field in the application login within so many seconds. And also, there are ways to compromise and breach those. In fact, according to Verizon, the 10th edition of Data Breach Investigations report, 81% of breaches leverage weak or stolen passwords. Think about, do you currently use an MFA solution? What's your use case? And importantly, what's your end user experience with the tool? What applications do you secure with your MFA? Very often, those end user experience is a key driver for how widely and how easily and quickly MFAs are deployed in enterprises. We'll talk a little bit more about that in some coming slides. We believe, and our customers back us up, that Duo Security is the world's easiest and most secure MFA. What you see there on the right side is actually what the screen looks like when you're using a Duo Security app on a mobile smartphone. Number one, it instantly integrates with all apps. Users self-enroll. There's no long enrollment process that has to be handled by an IT or security admin. That happens in just a matter of minutes. And then when you authenticate to the application or the system that's secured with Duo, it happens in seconds. No codes to enter. That screen you see there is very real. That's exactly what it looks like. You'll get the application, you open it up, you'll see the approval request, green check, approve, red X, deny. It's that simple. Just press one button and your MFA transmits back to the system and allows or denies access. Customer story. This is a true story. There was an IT admin from Stanford Health. Said he had a voicemail from a doctor telling him, surprised, that he liked using Duo. In this case, they were using Duo Push for e-prescriptions. And the IT admin said this is the first time he ever had a doctor call IT and thank them for anything having to do with security. Usually just the opposite is what's going on. People are calling and saying, why are you doing this? Why are you making us do this? Another customer story, Boston University, they were able to enroll 24,000 students via self-enrollment in less than 2 months. Can any of you remember when you deployed something to 24,000 people in just a couple months? Probably not. And it's not just a smartphone. There's multiple ways we can do it. Flexible authentication options for users are what we include. You may not have a smartphone. We really don't care. We don't license it per device. We license per user. You can manage which options are enabled for which end users. For instance, some users may require SMS, a phone call, a short message service, a text message. Others may require biometrics if you want the extra layer of security. You can do that. And others still may use a very modern like U2F, which is a secure form of authentication for end users. Facebook, for example, uses Duo with U2F to allow application developers to log in several hundred times a day using their Unix servers, their SSH logins by simply tapping a key on their laptops because they have that U2F token plugged into their laptop. It's integrated with Duo, verifies who is there and how they're logging in, where they are. They're in a secured environment. So flexible authentication options. The one you see there is very real. We have the Duo app on the Apple Watch, and you have that similar approve or deny choice right there on your wrist. I mentioned self-enrollment. It's very easy, just a few quick steps. You see a very simple web interface. That's what you see when you self-enroll. You can use the mobile phone, you can use a tablet, and for people who prefer or only have access to a landline, you can even use that. When you go to be authenticated via Duo Security, you'll get a phone call on your landline. You'll lift up that phone and it'll say, if you're expecting this and you want to authenticate, do nothing. Just hang up and the authentication happens. If it's not you and you have reason to suspect the call is something that you're not expecting, just press any number key and that will deny the application from being authenticated via Duo. That's simple, even using a landline technology. And as well as the U2F tokens that I mentioned, like a YubiKey or something like that. And I mentioned a variety of applications that we support with Duo MFA. Anything from various flavors of VPN. It's not just Cisco. We support all the common VPN types: Cisco, Juniper, Citrix, Palo Alto Networks, Global Protect, Pulse Secure. Whatever cloud you're working with, whatever application or platform as a service you're working with, whether it's the Google Apps, the G Suite, Salesforce.com, Amazon Web Services, etc. Support your email, or whether it's Office 365 or your on-prem or hosted Outlook. On-prem applications, single sign-on applications. If you have a Microsoft Azure SSO or Okta or Centrify, anything like that, we can integrate with that. Even if you don't have any of those and you're working with perhaps legacy applications that don't have standard APIs or hooks into them for single sign-on, we can work with REST APIs. We can even provide a web software development kit or SDK to work with you. Radius is one example there. We can work with Radius, Cisco Identity Services Engine as a Radius server, Duo MFA backing that up to provide that MFA even for network access. There's a lot of these that are already built in integrations. Duo.com/docs has examples of those, and trust me, I've done a couple of integrations myself. They're very easy, very simple to set up with Duo Security. Another customer success story here, we had the Chief Information Security Officer, the CISO from Ohio State University. They went live with Duo in front of their HR self-service portal for people to access their human resources records and services. In less than a month, they had 32,000 employees enrolled with Duo. And the CISO said Duo has been one of the most successful IT projects, not just security, but of all IT projects at Ohio State. Both the president and the provost of the university have personally commented on how easy it is to use Duo. Again, these are sort of stories you don't often hear, especially from folks in the management and executive ranks, to say, hey, this is a great security product. We really like it. It's easy to use, easy to set up. Kudos for that. I mentioned earlier, different challenges and different verticals, whether you're in healthcare, a lot of our customers at DSI are in education, where you need to secure personnel and payroll data, deploy to faculty, students, alumni. You have a very diverse user base. Duo Security, even before its acquisition by Cisco, has over 350 higher education customers, as well as in the federal space. If you have NIST, DFARS, FAR compliance issues, we are in progress for FedRAMP certification, all things that we can address with Duo Security. And one other thing, it's a lower total cost of ownership compared to your traditional MFA solutions. If you compare it to something like an RSA, you'll find Duo Security is a lower total cost of ownership. One more case study here. Duke University is a great example. One of the things when we secure applications with Duo is to first ensure we can verify every user to be who they are, who they say they are, using that strong two-factor multi-factor authentication. So 2FA, MFA is one of the easiest and most effective ways to immediately identify, reduce and security and compliance risk. So how quickly we can do that is why a lot of people have chosen Duo Security. Duke University, they had seen a number of security breaches, including one where stolen credentials from a phishing attack, email phishing, were used to redirect paychecks of 10 faculty members to a attacker's bank account. So they needed a way to quickly stop this phishing, stop the credential theft in its tracks, keep it from becoming a larger security breach. And while they were there, they wanted to secure all their critical applications, including various remote access, single sign-on technologies, remote desktop, VPN services, etc., as well as key infrastructure like their VMware. And the challenge was they needed to do this without causing friction and hampering their 54,000 students, faculty, and staff. And that's exactly what Duo Security helped them do. They quickly stopped those phishing attacks right away from compromised accounts, but they were also able to start protecting their users without slowing down their daily workflows. You saw how simple that Duo interface is. And regardless of the role in the university, whether they're students, staff, faculty, admin, a broad mix of applications and technologies, secured them all. If you look again at that duo.com, there's the use cases there. It'll be in your presentation that we'll provide you after this. You'll see the link there for the presentation for Duke University's case study in detail. So Duo Access for Adaptive Multi-Factor Authentication. One of the problems IT admins struggle with today is actually enforcing policies. For example, how do we enforce role-based policies for user groups such as admins, employees, vendors, contractors, and can we customize them for each application? We can do that with Duo's policy framework. You can map it to industry compliance standards, like I mentioned, PCI, HIPAA, and NIST. And we can set policies very easily. The top three examples that we set is we can say we have a policy to block privileged users from using personal devices to access production servers. So even though you may be an authorized user and you are authorized access to that production server, you cannot do it from a personal device. We check that device status. We can block remote users. So for instance, if you never expect an administrator to be coming in from China, we can say if the source IP is China, block it. Do that using Duo Security. And you can ensure where you do have mobile or remote devices authorized to access sensitive applications, that those devices are encrypted. They're not jailbroken, for instance. We have a customer example there where Centara Healthcare uses Duo to enforce policies for all their mobile devices. With Duo, they can say no personal unencrypted device is able to access company applications like the e-prescriptions. Duo Security allows them to do that. So putting that graphically a little bit different, combine those trusted users with trusted devices to secure access to any application, no matter where it is, on-prem, off-prem, in the cloud. One other metric that kind of catches your eye, compromised devices can access your data. Admins, very often, almost every organization I've seen, lack the time to patch all corporate managed devices. End users access data with personal and managed devices, and they don't want admins to take control of those personal devices. Perfectly understandable. Well, attackers aren't just using the user credentials to cause data breaches, they're also targeting those devices, whether they're user-owned or internal devices. They're looking at what's patched and what's unpatched, and they're taking advantage of those unpatched. And ultimately, it's the organization as a whole that's at risk when that corporate data is accessed from a personal or unmanaged device that's versions out of date. And it's not that these are 0 days or particularly advanced vulnerabilities are taking advantage of. Just look at that statistic. 99% of vulnerabilities, almost all vulnerabilities exploited, are ones that have been known to the security team for at least a year. These aren't brand new. These aren't advanced persistent threats from nation states. These are hackers using common, commercially available or open source hacking tools, taking advantage of vulnerabilities that are out there in the wild and well known to many, many different organizations. So what we can do is verify trust for any device. We have this part of Duo called Unified Device Visibility, where we provide an inventory of all the devices, whether they're corporate, BYOD, laptops, or mobile, distinguish between them so we can set policies for what a personal device can do when it accesses an application, for example, and give you that deep insight like you see going on the screen right here. It's doing a security checkup of this device to say, is the iOS up to date? Is the app up to date, et cetera? Do we have biometric access to the device enabled with Face ID in this case? Is the screen lock enabled? Are we jailbroken? By providing that deep insight, and we can then set policies to say, hey, you have to meet all of these requirements and able to be able to access the most secure corporate applications and data. By doing that, it gives us a big leg up on overcoming those security risks that we saw in the previous slides. Now, I should mention there, almost forgot that last bullet. We're not just one platform, we're just about every platform. Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android, all those we can support with that device trust check. And Duo Beyond. We look at this as what a new term you might have not heard before in the industry is called a zero trust approach. I mean, you know that old perimeter that you saw back in the beginning slide, that's not going away, it's still there. But really with the new perimeter, the perimeter is really wherever you have to make an access control decision, whether it's on a remote device, whether it's on an in-house device, whether it's something in between, whether it's in the cloud, whether it's on-premise. By using zero trust as your premise, different type of premise there, means you establish user and device trust before granting access. We don't assume any trust. You don't implicitly trust users and devices based on what network location they're in, for example. And Cisco limits the time and the privileges for trust to persist as near zero as practical, but without forcing the user to re-authenticate every minute. We want that to happen in the background to keep doing that security checkup you saw on that previous screen to make sure that none of those parameters change while the user has accessed the application or the data using that secured connection with Duo Security. So with zero trust, we identify the user identities, you validate their devices, and that's a starting point to build user and device trust. There are other components that you can learn once you take a deep look into Duo Security to improve trust in users and devices with Duo Beyond. So why do customers choose Duo Security? What are the reasons that they have? Four main that we've seen. Number one, top left there, easy, flexible to use. Multiple customers across multiple industries have said that people just love using it. It's so simple, so easy, not at all feeling like a security app, just feeling like a natural part of doing business once they've deployed Duo Security. Lower total cost of ownership. And remember, TCO or total cost of ownership is not just the cost to acquire a product or a solution, it's also how much does it cost to own it. For instance, what does it result in as far as help desk requests? This director of security at Connectory Hosting said they've seen reduced number of help desk requests by more than 75%. That means less staff required or less staff time required helping users just access their applications, forgotten passwords, lost device, things like that. Having Duo MFA reduce that significantly and thus reduce their total cost of ownership. Broadest coverage, the number of employees accessing here at Ohio State up to 300,000 now, hundreds of apps, very successful project. And speed, Anchorage School District here, less than a week from identifying a solution to starting to authenticate with Duo. Very, very easy. Those are the top reasons why our customers choose Duo Security. Packaging and pricing, I mentioned earlier, just for a quick show you here about what Duo can be expected to cost you. Straight multi-factor authentication, $3 per user per month. We don't care how many users, where they are, how many devices there are. How many users do you have? $3 per user per month. That gives you basic multi-factor authentication, your single sign-on for unlimited applications, whether it's one application or all your applications. Same price, $3 per user per month. Dual access is where we start to do the checking that device, allowing you to have policies based on both the user and device risk, $6 per user a month. And then finally, the top tier, Duo Beyond, at $9 per user per month, lets you get very granular as you want or can imagine with device policies based on device trust. That's your standard packaging for Duo Security, and of course, DSI would be happy to talk to you more about your requirements. That covers what I had to talk to you about Duo Security from Cisco and offered by DISA Solutions Incorporated, DSI. That concludes my briefing for today. Does anybody have any questions, or is there any questions in the Q&A from the team back at Ashburn?
Marvin, I do not see any questions at the moment. Thank you for that presentation.
You're welcome, and thank you all, our customers and partners, for joining us this morning.
All right, that concludes our webinar. Thank you very much for joining us.